Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host and most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion, and that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on, it's gonna be fun. Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host and most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion, and that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on, it's gonna be fun.
Hey guys, today's date, January the 9th, 2021, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm host and most Will Buchanan, How the Frack We Got Here. On How the Frack We Got Here, we do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before I do get started, we are trying to work down and tone down the language a little bit, but this week's podcast, I'm just going to go ahead and be honest, everything's graphic. Everything's going to be graphic, everything's going to be violent. If you have young kids around, or you yourself do not like violence, I guess, this is probably going to be a very hard podcast for you. Just go ahead and just say off the bat, because wow. Aside from tell you welcome, we have seen a lot this week. We have seen the equivalent of 6 months, really, in a single week. And I would be remiss not to talk about the elephant in the room, as we will go into chronological order. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. How did this all start? One could say it started with a phone call.
Stunning new pressure campaign as President Trump tries to overturn his election defeat.
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
NBC News obtained the full audio from an hour-long Saturday phone call with the president, Trump advisors, and Georgia election officials.
I think you have to say that you're going to re-examine it.
Exerting the influence of the presidency, Mr. Trump leaned on Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to announce a reversal of certified Georgia results from Biden to Trump.
And there's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated.
Raffensperger refused.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
In another tense exchange, the president pushed a conspiracy theory that a voting machine company tampered with ballots, even suggesting state officials hid illegal activity.
Now, do you think it's possible that they shredded ballots in Fulton County? Because that's what the rumor is. And also that Dominion took out machines. That Dominion is really moving fast to get rid of their machinery. Do you know anything about that?
Georgia lawyer Ryan Germany shot that down.
No, Dominion has not moved any machinery out of Fulton County. We're having.
But have they moved the inner parts of the machines and replaced them with other parts?
No.
You sure, Ryan?
I'm sure.
The president threatened that Georgia officials could face legal trouble themselves.
You know what they did, and you're not reporting it. That's a criminal offense. That's a big risk to you and to Ryan, your lawyer. That's a big risk.
Piling on partisan guilt.
You should want to have an accurate election. And you're a Republican.
We believe that we do have an accurate election.
No, I know you don't.
Tonight, a Biden senior advisor described the call as irrefutable proof of a president pressuring and threatening an official of his own party to get him to rescind a state's lawful, certified vote count and fabricate another in its place.
And Kelly's with us. There's an update on the effort by some Republicans to challenge the election in Congress this week.
Well, what we know is there are groups of Trump loyalists who do plan to stage their protest, and it might be a spectacle. But now we know they do not have enough numbers to overturn the result because enough Senate Republicans have publicly stated they will affirm Joe Biden as the next president.
Okay, so that's how this week started. You know, we were still in the middle of a special Senate race. Two Senate races, actually. One for a special Senate seat, the other one for the regular Senate seat. And Trump is still looking for 11,780 votes. Now, as we move forward, we get to, I guess you can call it Tuesday?
Noting the fact that your 82-year-old mother, whose hands picked someone else's cotton, you said, got to cast her vote for her son to be senator from the state of Georgia. What was that moment like when the state was called for you?
Good morning. Listen, this is a wonderful day here in Georgia, and I believe in America. I am an iteration and an example of the American dream. I spoke to my mom last night, and when I think about the arc of our history, what Georgia did last night is its own message in the midst of a moment in which so many people are trying to divide our country. At a time we can least afford to be divided. We've got big problems, and I'm deeply honored that the people of Georgia have placed their trust in someone who grew up in public housing, one of 12 children, I'm number 11, the first college graduate in my family, and I hope to bring the concerns of ordinary people to the United States Senate.
Perhaps the distractor-in-chief is President Donald Trump, who did a lot in your state. He campaigned there, yes, but he also called to try to get the presidential results overturned in your state.
And not to cut off the Reverend Raphael Warnock, but yes, he actually did win the special Senate seat over Kelly Ledoff, really by a good margin. And of course, that wasn't the only news that we actually heard about that was also in Georgia. If it plays.
To say in the midst of all of this horrendous news that's going on here in Washington, something that none of us ever expected we would see in the nation's capital. I just want to make it official right now. CNN can now project that the Democrats will be the majority in the U.S. Senate. John Ossoff, the Democratic candidate in Georgia, he is defeating David Perdue, the Republican candidate. Earlier, we projected that the Democrat Raphael Warnock will beat Kelly Loeffler, the Republican candidate. So it's 50-50 in the new U.S. Senate.
Yes, so much win. Georgia has flipped blue, not only in voting for the president-elect Joe Biden and the Madam VP-elect Kamala Harris. They have now decided to vote for the Georgia senators. Again, Reverend, say the Reverend. If you earn the title of Reverend, then doggone it, you earned it. The Reverend Raphael Warnock and Joel Ossoff were elected as senators for the Democrats in Georgia. And as Wolf Blitzer was going to say, that yes, this does mean that virtually Congress itself is really has a Democratic majority. The Democrats do own a majority in the House of Representatives, and with these two pickups, that does mean that the Democrats virtually have a majority in the Senate. With, again, Madam VP-elect Kamala Harris will be the tiebreaker in the Senate, which means that, again, I'm just going to point this out as we're going down this chronological order because we're about to hit the shitty slope. I have said this once and I've said this again. On How the Frack We Got Here, we go after everybody. The last 4 years, I have went after Republicans. I have sat there and said that Moscow Mitch was the wall that blocked a lot of bills from going through. Bills that could have potentially pushed America forward. Instead, he decided to hold America back. Even more so with the most recent stimulus checks, if you think about it, that the Republicans were not wanting to give Americans $2,000 on a monthly basis. they had to agree to a measly $600. And I know for a lot of people, $600 may help at least get knocked down a bill or two, but it certainly does not help with the bigger things like mortgages, rent, and possibly car payments. And this feeling the need to eat. So I will say this to the Democrats: come January 21st, Joe Biden, Mr. President Joe Biden, Madam Vice President, I can't wait to say that, Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, you guys are on the clock. The first 100 days of your administration is going to be critical. You guys have made a crap load of promises, especially the most recent one, Mr. Biden, where you sat there and said if you had a democratically controlled Senate and a democratically controlled House of Representatives, that you would push forward with a $2,000 stimulus. Time to see what you do. Because if I'm not hearing anything on the first day of your administration, then yes, we are going to criticize and investigate and look at you through an objective lens. No different than the Republicans were under that for 4 years. But I think it'll be different. I think that Joe will actually push some things forward. I still think they will push forward with a stimulus check. Now, if they say $1,400 just to match the $600 that we get, I think that would kind of be some bullshit. But at the same time, if they push forward with a $2,000 because let's face it, the money's there, it wouldn't be a problem. At the same time, I want to see I want to see some progressive. I actually want to see some progressive bills move forward. I actually want to see the stimulus plan. I actually want to see unemployment get put back up and make it retroactive. I want to see the decriminalization of marijuana. I want to see other things, restoring back the EPA, dropping this crappy China trade deal that Dorito has put in. Because let's be honest, you're not going to win a trade deal with China when China owns 90% of everything that we buy. You're not going to win a trade deal. Let's just be honest about that. But at the same time, measures have to be put in order to, as I said, the first 100 days of the Biden administration is going to say a lot. But before we move on, I have to say this much. I know everybody is giving shout outs to Stacey Abrams. I know that because that woman, I wish there was a meme that was going out. Anybody who's ever seen Game of Thrones, who's seen House Tyrell and Lady Tyrell, that's on there. When she sit there and tells Jamie Lannister, let's tell Cersei it was me. And they, replaced her face with they replaced her face with Stacey Abrams, and in the quotation it says, "Tell Donald it was me." And don't get me wrong about Stacey Abrams. I still believe that she should be the governor of Georgia. I think Brian Kemp, him purging voter registrations from Georgia may have actually won him the governorship in Georgia. I believe so. But in an ironic twist, a federal judge restored the voting registrations back in Georgia, who also is related to Stacey Abrams. So there's some 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon for you. At the same time, Stacey Abrams and a handful of other individuals got together and strategized, organized, and mobilized Georgia. There were a bunch, let me tell you something. There were a bunch of people in Georgia who had never voted. The last time they probably voted was probably for Obama. Since then, they haven't voted for anybody. To think that there was such a massive turnout of voters in Georgia. And Georgia, let's be honest, in more areas is more predominantly minority, i.e. black. So I love the fact that black voters came out, especially young black voters, because I said this before on my special I did earlier this week. I have to say it now. Magic City is a very famous place in Atlanta, Georgia, and they had a versus battle there. But before they began the versus battle, they had a video from Stacey Abrams telling people to get out and vote. Think about that. Do you think about the message that we're reaching out to everybody? Because let's be honest, just because you gotta talk to everybody. That's the truth. So the simple fact of the matter that in Magic City, a video from Stacey Abrams was put up telling folks to vote speaks volumes. It really does. So, like I said before, much props to her and everyone else, because there were a lot of other people besides her. Don't get me wrong, she played a vital part. But there were still many other people, many other hip-hop artists, many other Black Lives Matter activists, journalists such as Roland Martin. They were all out there trying to get people to understand the importance of voting in this election. And also at the same time, as we move on, let's be glad that Moscow Mitch will finally be reduced to his greatest fear, being a minority. All right, so like I said before, we're following this in chronological order, and as you can tell, this is right after Georgia just elected 2 senators, and it basically turned blue, and and let's be honest, Doritos still looking for straws.
There's new reporting on the increasingly tense relationship between outgoing President Trump and Vice President Pence ahead of tomorrow's certification of the election results in Congress. Caitlin Collins, tell us what you're learning.
Yeah, Jake, earlier we reported that President Trump and Vice President Pence had a lunch today. It doesn't appear they actually had lunch during this meeting between the two of them, where we are now being told that basically the Vice President went through step by step with President Trump what it is that he can do on Capitol Hill tomorrow as Congress is meeting to certify Joe Biden's win. And in essence, he told the president that part of that is not going to be an ability to block the certification of Joe Biden's win. Basically, this lowering of expectations of what the president can expect, someone who has been incredibly loyal to him over the last several years, but whom the president has been criticizing over the last several days, what he can expect when Pence does go up to the Hill tomorrow. Now, this is a meeting that they had today. The Vice President just left the White House a few moments ago, so that means they are not going to be watching these returns here in Georgia come in. That's pretty unusual, given they typically try to watch them together, but of course, things have gotten incredibly tense between these two in Donald Trump's final days in office, which is, not a typical relationship between the president and vice president and what they've had over the last 4 years, Jake, because they've tried to navigate what's going on. And now this is this ultimate test that the president is putting Pence in, and he wants him to go up there and cause this disruption. And even though he has been some internal advisors that Pence does have a bigger role than he does tomorrow, Pence told the president that is not going to be something he's been able to do, because he did meet with the Senate parliamentarian earlier this week for several hours going over exactly what his role is going to look like. And he told the president that does not involve not being able to certify Biden's win as the president would like him to do.
All right, Caitlin Collins, great report.
Oh, yes. Trump, now at this point in the week, Dorito is desperate. He already knows that they're about to certify the votes, and once they are certified, there is no point of no return. That is pretty much going to be it, and he is freaking out. So what does he do? He goes to Pence, his vice president. He goes to Pence and says, "I think you can get me out of this, Mike. I think you can get me out of this. I just need you to go down to the House, to the Senate, and I just need you to overturn all the votes, okay? Overturn the votes. You have the ability." Mike Pence said, "No, I don't." and I said, it's the beauty of this. This is why I say this is the beauty of this. For the simple fact of the matter, Trump went to Mike Pence thinking that Mike Pence had the ability because as VP, he is literally the president over the Senate, and thinks that because they're certifying the votes in the Senate, that he can just overturn them however he likes. And Pence, I guess, decided to finally be a vice president and goes, "No, I don't have that ability. I can certify it, they can object, they can argue about it, but I cannot overturn shit." Now, let's also keep in mind at this point that, as we just saw in the previous podcast, we saw in the previous clip, 140 Republicans supported objecting the count. 140 Republicans. I believe at least 100 of them haven't been sworn in yet. So 140 Republicans, along with the president, are all objecting to the count of a democratically controlled system in which the people and the states voted to make Joe Biden and Kamala Harris president and vice president. I mean, at this point, does this not sound like a dictator move? It does. Even more so as we get to, like I said, this is still Tuesday. This is Tuesday night because Trump had said that they're going to have a rally on January the 6th. Why is January the 6th? Because January the 6th is the day that the Senate was going to meet to certify the actual counts from the Electoral College. And as you can see, the night before, on Tuesday, well,
whatever happens to President Trump in 15 days, he is still the elected president of this republic, and we do not recognize the communist Chinese agent Joe Biden or his controllers. I trust in the great contest of liberty. I trust in my forebears, and I trust in you.
I love freedom. I love your freedom.
Now, that was actually the night before the protest. And, of course, few problems with that statement. Number one, we're not a republic. I don't know where he gets that idea from. And two, the fact that, again, with Donald Trump tweeting that we're going to have a rally on the day of the certification seems fishy, right? Well, it didn't stop people because, well, this is actually what happened on the night leading up to his actual speech.
Black Lives Matter! You! Are you sure which side you work for? I see blue helmets. I know George Soros pays a lot, but last time I checked, what's up, boys? Ain't work! They want you broken core! Remember your oath! Proud Boy Plaza! 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 You want to defund MPD? Then let's go meet somewhere and not tell them. Come on! MPD's protecting you! You Maoist! Come on, Top Road! Bring it on! Let's go then! I'm done talking! No more looting, no more burning down our cities. And this is our country! Get Antifa! Get Antifa! Get that in my face! Get Antifa! Are you kidding me, people? Are you kidding me, man? You don't care. You don't care for this country. You gotta go home, bro. They're gonna push us away. We are here because you guys don't know. how to do your job. That's why you just move back, man. Come on.
And to think, that was 2 days. That was 2 days before the speech. And of course, the Proud Boys were there. And at the same time, it amazed me so that, again, this was 2 days. And even more so, like I said before, still battling the police.
This is American blood! Fucking American blood!
Crazy, right? Now, like I said before, this is all leading up to the speech. Keep in mind, they were already there 2 days. Keep in mind, the speech was on the 6th of January. 2 days before that would put them on the 4th. So already, think about this for a second. You have a large group of people. I like to call them a cult. You have your cult followers all there 2 days before the election, even though Trump had tweeted, we're going to have a rally on January the 6th. Chaos has already ensued. Police again before, like I said, and I'm going to get to a point. I know a lot of y'all people are thinking this right now, and I know that, but I'm going to get to that. But again, you would think the warnings would be that we need to amp up some security systems. You need to amp up the security just a little bit, right? Especially when you hear Donald Trump say some stuff like this at his speech.
They came from all over the world, actually, but they came from all over our country. I just really want to see what they do. I just want to see how they cover it. I've never seen anything like it, but it would be really great if we could be covered fairly by the media. The media is the biggest problem we have as far as I'm concerned. Single biggest problem. The fake news and the big tech. Big tech is now coming into their own. We beat them 4 years ago. We surprised them. We took them by surprise. And this year, they rigged an election. They rigged it like they've never rigged an election before. And by the way, last night they didn't do a bad job either, if you notice. I'm honest, and I want to thank you. It's just a great honor to have this kind of crowd and to be before you and hundreds of thousands of American patriots who are committed to the honesty of our elections and the integrity of our glorious republic. All of us here today do not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats, which is what they're doing, and stolen by the fake news media. That's what they've done and what they're doing. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about. And to use a favorite term that all of you people really came up with, we will stop the steal. Today I will lay out just some of the evidence proving that we won this election, and we won it by a landslide. This was not a close election. You know, I say sometimes jokingly, but there's no joke about it. I've been in 2 elections. I won them both, and the second one I won much bigger than the first, okay?
And I'll just save you guys. And I'll just have to save you guys. That's actually his speech from the 6th. I'm just going to go ahead and just light that up because we're not going to sit through 50 minutes of bullshit. I refuse to put you guys through that. But again, he comes in a Save America rally talking about, and the words that he used, he says, we're not going to take it. We're going to stop the steal. You know, you should fight this if it's you. We need to fight this because it's theft. And you hear the crowd in there, like I said, watching it all the way through because me wanting to be integrity bound. I had to watch that mess all the way through. And in the middle of it, he goes, in the middle of the crowd just starts fighting. The crowd starts saying, "Fight for Trump, fight for Trump." And he sat there and said, he goes, "Thank you. I'd love to have you if you," he says, and I quote, "Thank you. I'd love to have, if those tens of thousands of people would be allowed, the military, the Secret Service, and we want to thank you, and the police, law enforcement. Great, you're doing a great job. But I love it if they would be allowed to come here with us. Is that possible? Can you let them up here, please?" And I'm like, "Let them up where?" I was like, "You're literally in front of the Capitol. Where are they going to be going?" And he goes from there where he talks about, I hope Mike Pence does the right thing, even though Mike Pence said there's nothing he can do about that. And again, and if you watch the speech, you could already tell this was riling up the crowd. Now, think about this. We are now on the day of the Senate, now about to count the electoral votes to do the final certification. Trump has just realized his entire cult is literally there for him. And 2 nights before, they've already had clashes with the police, which again, I find it interesting that this was all leading up to where, we see this.
Chief Anchor George Stephanopoulos.
Good afternoon. We're coming back on the air right now because we were just learning that those protesters you saw on the Capitol steps just moments ago have now breached the Capitol, are now inside the Capitol. I want to go to our reporter on the phone, Trish Turner, on the Senate side of the Capitol. What can you tell us, Trish?
George, it was really a surreal sight. We began to, the tempo outside began to escalate, and we were hearing reports of, and our cameramen were telling us that these protesters were really pushing against the barricades, trying to tear them down. Then the word got inside, they've breached the barricades. They're on the first floor. I went down. Our offices, as you know, are on the 4th floor on the Senate side of the Capitol. I came down to the 3rd floor just to look out of the windows on the top floor. We'd already been told, stay away from exterior windows, stay away from the doors, but there's a vantage point. I thought I might be able to see 2 cops that I know well were running down the hall, screaming at us, "Get back into your offices." Understood. They've made it into the building. Okay, sounds good. You could hear overhead announcents. It was just chaos. Hey guys, sorry. Even the announcement, which, is a totally rare moment in the Capitol, it was emergency, emergency, emergency. The barricade, shelter in place. If you can't shelter, barricade yourself into an office, into a space, and just people were running and shouting, and it was truly kind of scary. I've never seen anything like it.
Thank you, Trish. Ben Siegel on the House side.
George, it's still quite a nightmare on the House side. You have members of Congress who are locked in the chamber with the House in recess. You have congressional leaders hustled out of the House chamber by their security details. And just moments ago, there's a pool reporter in the chamber locked in there with the members of the House who said that a Capitol police officer took to that stage where we saw Vice President Mike Pence and said the Capitol has been breached, and he urged them all to stay where they are. So this is a real nightmare scenario unfolding. So many entrances and tunnels and mazes, exits in and out of the Capitol that could be breached right now. It's going to be hard to really secure the whole campus after they've had to evacuate 2 buildings and have protesters outside the building on many sides.
We have never seen anything like this before. You see those protesters inside the Capitol. Mary Bruce, you're there every single day, at least before the pandemic, every single day. Normally the public is allowed into the Capitol after going through some security checks, but nothing like this has ever happened before where you see this kind of widespread breach.
George, I'm just astounded to see these images of protesters there marching through Statuary Hall on their way, it appears, to the House floor. They are just steps away from the chamber. Right there, that image, that is literally just one room away from the chamber floor. And you have to remember, of course, what's happening inside the chamber. We have seen or learned that leadership was taken, was whisked away by security. Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, and others. The vice president, of course, is no longer there, but it does appear that there is business continuing on the floor. They are continuing to have this debate over these objections to the results, even as now just steps away, you have this really astounding breach of security with protesters now roaming freely, it appears, through the halls of the Capitol. This is just not something I've ever seen or really imagined I could see, because normally, on any given day, yes, this is the people's house, and you often have many people, pre-pandemic, roaming the halls. You have to have an appointment to get into the Capitol. You have to go through several levels of security. Members of the public usually have to be, on some kind of guided tour or there to see a member or to have some actual business purpose for being in the halls. And you do go through several layers of security. You have to get a badge, go through a mag. So the fact that they now seem to have just breached the barricades, and look, some of them, it appears, are taking videos, taking pictures, shouting, urging others to come along. It is, I'm a bit dumbfounded, because we just have never seen anything like this.
Well, with good reason. John, Carl, you can't even use the word normally when you're looking at something like this happen. But if you were to use it,
let's call it what it is. As you can see, after the rally, they did try to go for the barricades and somehow got through. I'm still trying to figure that one out personally. Just as as another clip I'm about to show recently, it's going to explain that. But again, yes, that they got through, and well, there is actually more than what they did just got through. They decided to give their opinions as well.
Oh, breakers! Oh, everything you're breakers! Joey, we're not standing here! We're not standing here doing some more!
What are we supposed to do? Okay? The Supreme Court's not helping us. No one's helping us. Only us can help us. Okay. Only we can do it.
A mass group of Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday to stop the certification of what they believe was a fraudulent election.
Unquestionable that our votes were stolen. It's unquestionable. There's so much proof.
People, come on! You didn't come here for nothing. Come on up, tell Nancy Pelosi what you think.
We want our representatives to do the right thing and decertify, like the 7 swing states.
USA! USA! USA!
The rally started peacefully as tens of thousands gathered outside the White House. They cheered Donald Trump and his allies as they continued to lie that the election was stolen.
Let's have trial by combat.
He just said trial by combat. I'm ready. I'm ready.
People marched down 2 avenues to the Capitol, and once they got there, some broke through barricades. Once a few rioters broke into the building, the mob followed.
I was actually here while this guy started breaking in with a cane. Obviously, there's a power struggle. There's the peaceful guys that were like, no, we don't want to do that. Then there was that guy. He just said, well, I'm breaking it in.
Broke down the barriers, and we rushed them. We charged them. We got all the way to the steps, and they made a line. So we stood there and we tried to push them back a little bit until finally they started getting rough with us. So we tried to push them back. So that's what we did. We pushed them back. We tried to get up the steps. They wouldn't let us up. So then they started pepper spraying and macing everybody.
Thank you.
Are you okay? Get some milk in your eyes.
They maced me.
Milk. Yeah, milk.
They pushed me out and they maced me.
We spoke to some people who broke into the Capitol.
Literally just what happened in there? Tell us what happened.
Yeah, we went in there and then I walked in and there's just a whole bunch of people lighting up in some Oregon room. I don't know if it's just tons of Oregon paintings, but they were smoking a bunch of weed in there. And then we moved it down, showing the statues. Cops are very cool. They're like, hey guys, have a good night. Some of them, it's just crazy. It's really weird. You can see that some of them are on our side.
We've reached out to the Capitol Hill police for comment, but have not yet heard back.
We've had your backs for a long time now. Long time.
A huge group of us stormed inside, and as we started, we were basically shouting at the cops, and there were people arguing with them, trying to get them on our side, basically.
Clashes with police happened sporadically throughout the day, and waves of tear gas wafted over the crowd. They said they felt like they were doing something good.
This is our Capitol! We built it!
You know, this is a bunch of really, really pissed off regular folks. I get a job. This is Wednesday. I'm supposed to be at work. Yeah. Shh.
Don't tread on me.
That's what we're doing. We're fighting back.
And what's the point? What's the end game?
What's the point?
Yeah.
We're losing our freedoms. What do you mean, what's the point?
Taking our freedoms, locking us down, and turning this country into a blasted socialist republic. And that is not right. That's what I'm doing here.
Ellie Reeve, CNN.
I love the fact that the guy just sat there and said, I'm supposed to be at work right now. I'm like, oh, when I first saw that clip, I was like, oh, don't worry. You don't have to worry about a job because you will probably be coming up. You will probably be, how can I put this ever so nicely? You don't have to worry about a job. And then at the same time, you have the other guy, you know, yelling out there, we built this, we built this. Technically slaves built it, but, you know, history. But yes, that's just other signs. Like I said, there have been multiple stories coming out about this. But I want to get, because like I said before, when I first saw this, I know every black person. I say we're a magical people because I am fairly certain every black person had this exact thought at the exact same time when that happened. If those protesters were black folks, come on now. And I said it yesterday. I said it again. I said it to my girlfriend Kelly when it first came live. If those were Black Lives Matter activists or anybody else of a minority, the streets at the U.S. Capitol would still be getting pressure washered off because they would be running with blood. You don't think, I said, the response you saw from the Capitol Police, again, just to give some context, you would think the simple fact of the matter that the 2 nights previously that all this went down, but the simple fact of the matter is the Capitol Police Chief can, of course, the Pentagon, mind you, the Pentagon reached out to the Capitol Police Chief and said, hey, will you need National Guard assistance? We can deploy troops. And the Capitol Police Chief said, no, we're good. Keep in mind, this was right after the Proud Boys and them descended upon D.C. Now, on the day thereof, of the day of the Electoral College certification, again, the Pentagon reached out to D.C. Police Chief and said, hey, do you need National Guard assistance? The police chief said, no. Even though you have more people there than your own police force can handle. And then when all that happened, there was a request, not from the police chief, again, not from the Capitol Police Chief, again from others to request National Guard troops to be placed there, which they did get there 90 minutes later. So again, this feels like something is off. But I wanted to point this out because I think America, I know black people have known this since the beginning of this great nation. Since at a time where white people didn't try to rush for the Capitol since the War of 1812. Yes, since the War of 1812, the U.S. Capitol has never been breached until 3 days ago. And now I want to play this because this piece that was done by a few people at CNN, Sonny Soferli, Devin Cole, and Alex Rogers, I have to give them credit for this because they said the same thing that a lot of black people said that day.
If black people had rushed the Capitol in the same way that we saw, there would have been a bloody massacre. I think what the events of this week have shown us is that there have always been multiple Americas.
The way the insurrectionists were treated by the police, they were literally coddled. They were literally given permission and a kind of white privileged opportunity to trash our Capitol.
In some ways, it sets a reality for where we are as a country. I think you hear so many times when you see events like this, oh, this is not who we are as a country. This is not who we are. Well, at some point, after you've said that over and over again, maybe it's time to acknowledge this is who we are as a country, and We can now start from this point to move forward.
You know, for so many of us in this country, we know what it is to be treated differently. And we also know what it is to be told that all of the things that we experience every single day don't exist, or that if they do exist, that it's our own fault, that we somehow created the conditions of inequality.
No one can tell me that if had been a group of Black Lives Matter protesting yesterday, they wouldn't have been treated very, very differently.
The difference between the treatment of white insurrectionists versus Black Lives Matter protesters is not merely a matter of white privilege on the back end, it's a matter of white supremacy on the front end. I tweeted the comparison between the way the insurrectionists were treated in the nation's capital and the way NAACP protesters were treated when we protested in a senator's office in Mobile, Alabama. We were cuffed, ultimately put into jail, and had to go to court in order to secure our liberty.
What we saw unfold at the Capitol was not just hypocrisy, it was a manifestation of power that has been entrenched since the beginning of this nation. So much of what I saw was dismay and disbelief from my neighbors and people in my community, people who I do political work with, but a lot of those people were white. And I have to say that this notion that how did we get here and how could this country be this way, as if it was an aberration or an anomaly, is only news to people for whom the rigged rules in this country don't apply to.
When my team and I were in Minneapolis, we were handcuffed for much less than people literally breaking into the United States Capitol. And when you put those images side by side, you can't help but notice a huge difference in disparity.
These people clearly are emboldened. They don't feel any urgency to move. And the real question here, Jake, is when is law enforcement going to show up in force to try to get these people out?
So when you look at the images of people running around the Capitol with blatantly racist signs and affiliations, and the symbolism of seeing someone walk through the United States Capitol with a Confederate flag, again, seemingly untouched by law enforcement, at the very least sends a message to the black community that your protests and your needs are going to be met with more pushback than what we saw as domestic terrorism in our United States Capitol.
The insurrectionists marched not into Mobile, Alabama, but into the nation's capital. They trashed the Capitol, they vandalized the Capitol, and literally, out of hundreds and hundreds of people who stormed the Capitol, a little over 50 were arrested hours after.
With all the work that many felt was done after the summer of 2020 on the lives, unfortunately, of people like Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and at least the shooting of Jacob Blake, there's still more work to be done.
In order for us to get to the America that we long for, the America that we hope for, the America that we imagine in our minds, it's quite critical that we begin to undo those rigged rules that allow some people to operate with impunity and other people to be punished simply for breathing.
And he's exactly right. Actually, they're all exactly right. There's always been two Americas. We as black people have known that. We really have known that as black folks. But I think it becomes more and more apparent because basically, like they all said, you see the contrast between the Black Lives Matter protests and what we saw just 3 days ago. That the police reaction to them versus the police reaction to us. Like, again, like I said before, you can't tell me different. Had Black Lives Matter activists did what, I mean, if they tried, if they tried to do what those fools did 3 days ago, there'd be a lot more deaths. Yes, some people did die at the Capitol, and I'm going to be honest, the one that was shot, I don't feel bad for her. She's a terrorist. They're all terrorists. They were all domesticated Caucasian terrorists. There were some black folks for reasons being there. I don't know why. But they were domestic terrorists that were trying to do a coup. Let's not call them Americans. They weren't Americans. They weren't patriots. They weren't anything of the sort. Let's call them what they are. Domestic terrorists. And again, even though we live in two Americas, for some odd reason, Americans will never sit there and admit that there is such thing as a white terrorist, which we saw plenty of them yesterday. We saw plenty of them the day before yesterday. Well, actually 3 days ago. So actually the day before yesterday's yesterday. But the thing about it is, guys, is just where, again, we have to ask the question: what happens at this? At this point, what's the fallout now? Now that the smoke is cleared, the U.S. Capitol, probably the entire D.C. area will probably be on lockdown for several days, only because I was telling everybody this. Don't think this is the end. I'm like, don't think this is the end, because if they came up here just to try to stop a certification count, I don't even want to imagine what they'll do on Inauguration Day. I have never felt this fearful about Inauguration Day since President Obama was about to be inaugurated. Everybody's fear, and I don't care what no one says. When we were back in 2008, and we were voting for, and we all saw President Obama win his first term, we were all happy about the inauguration, historically making, but there was a little bit of fear, because what's to keep some trigger-happy cracker from trying to shoot and kill this man? That's the truth. So thankfully it didn't happen. We had 2 great terms with Obama, despite opposition. So again, this goes right back in. We now have another history-making event. That we will have a first female madam, I'm not going to say female sounds so wrong. We will have a madam vice president. And Kamala Harris, a black woman. Again, the fear is right there. The fear itself is still right there. Even though we're not too far off from the inauguration, the fear is still there. That what could happen. And we see now, that was just the U.S. Capitol. And again, what's the fallout from it? I mean, do we really beef up security? Will the National Guard have to remain in place until after the inauguration? I mean, it's again, there's so many questions that need to be answered from the U.S. from the Capitol Police Chief. Unfortunately, he did resign after this because Nancy Pelosi demanded it, which I don't blame her for. But now, because of all this is happening, 2 words have come up in the last couple of days. We'll first start with impeachment.
Impeachment timeline is 6 to 7 days. That would put a first vote in the middle of next week. Now, Republicans are cautious. Most prefer to run out the clock and say another impeachment would only deepen the nation's political wounds. But there are Republicans who say the president must be held accountable. Senator Ben Sasse of Nebraska is one.
He was flagrantly disregarding his oath of office. So that's not in debate. The House, if they come together and have a process, I will definitely consider whatever articles they might move. What he did was wicked.
Republican sources are telling CNN there are more Republicans open to voting yes on impeaching and removing the president if the charges drafted by the Democrats are viewed as reasonable by Republicans. Now, the president today trying to blunt any Republican support for his removal. In a tweet, he warns his 75 million voters remain, quote, a giant voice in Republican politics, and says they best not be disrespected. The defiant tone there just hours after a much more subdued video that, yes, finally acknowledged Joe Biden's victory, but that aides say the president taped only to quash rumblings his cabinet was thinking about invoking the 25th Amendment.
Now Congress has certified the results. A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power.
The impeachment strategy call happening right now is just one consequential new piece of the rioting fallout. The effort to bring the rioters to justice now includes a federal murder investigation. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick died last night from injuries he sustained in that insurrection.
And with that being said, guys, like I said before, yes, impeachment. Impeachment and the 25th Amendment were both put on the table. Of course, Nancy Pelosi and others were pretty much calling for impeachment because simple fact of the matter is there is no excuse. I mean, look at the evidence that we've seen. Trump incited his cult to basically go do a coup for him. That's pretty much what it was, a coup. A failed coup at that, but it was still a coup. But again, Pelosi and Republicans are calling for impeachment, which means that because now Democrats are kind of controlling everything, would not be surprised they're actually trying to go ahead and do that. Mike Pence has already sat there and said that he will not invoke the 25th Amendment. For all those that don't know, the 25th Amendment is basically when is invoked when the president is unfit for his executive duties, and that with the help of the vice president and the attorney general and 3 other key officials, they can remove Trump from office, and of course, Pence will become president for a few weeks. Pence isn't going to do that because the 25th Amendment is not just a simple, I come in, say you're unfit, and then you're out the door kind of situation. No. There is a process. The 25th Amendment is invoked saying that the president is unfit. The president can rebuke this, saying that I am fit, and then it goes from there as far as into the House and the Senate to decide on whether or not the president is up. And that also may include a physical examination. It might include a mental health check, things of that nature. But it is definitely not a I invoke this and you're out fast food type of scenario, which leads to the other thing, impeachment. At this point, a lot of Republicans who used to back Trump immensely, except for Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz, because, well, let's be honest, they're idiots, are now coming to the side of saying, well, Trump has to go. And I'm thinking to myself, as I'm thinking about all these people, because basically the most beautiful part about this whole story, well, not yet. I know it sounds ugly to say this, but I like to think that the veil has been lifted from a lot of Republicans personally. I like to think the simple fact of the matter is just that they now see how much of a monster they created when the monster turns on them. Like I said before about this cult is nothing more than this cult was nothing more than hatred and rage, of bigotry, of just xenophobic, homophobic people. And Trump gave them a voice because he was their wet dream. He was everything. He was everything they wanted to do. The emboldenment, the entitlement, the fact that you think you can say whatever you want without consequences. They saw that happen to Trump and say that he's winning, and they loved him for it. And at the same time, Trump kept feeding that monster. That's all it is. That cult was nothing more than Frankenstein. You built him, you created him, you coddled him, and now he is the beast that you no longer can control. And Republicans and I'll tell you something about Republicans. For a lot of you guys, you had no problems with that. You loved it, especially Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. Yes, I haven't forgot about you, bitch. But y'all all loved when they came to your rallies. You all loved when, they voted for you. You all loved when they donated to your PACs. Now when that same mob comes after you, now all of a sudden you try to point the finger at Trump. You're just as responsible as he is. You are. And the thing about it is, what amazes me so is how the level of passing the buck, which I find crazy because two more recent cabinet positions that actually resigned after that. First one was, of course, my personal favorite. Secretary Betsy DeVos had submitted her resignation via email after the incident, saying that the rioters' behavior was unconscionable and wrote, "There's no mistaking the impact your rhetoric had on the situation and its inflection point for me." And I thought to myself, this was a woman who literally and figuratively failed us as a Secretary of Education. She had no experience, she's a billionaire, and she has stake in a collection company that collects student loans. Even when she could have turned around and cleared out student loans herself or had a program to reduce it, she was making money off of it. And has the nerve to sit there and say, the impact of your rhetoric had the situation and its inflection point for me. How about you was getting rich off this? At the same time, also, Margaret Child, the Secretary of Transportation, also resigned, who is also Moscow Mitch's wife. Again, I can't think of any time that she basically had an impact, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think she just got paid 4 years for honestly doing nothing. much like her husband. But again, I'm not surprised by that. But like I said before, there are people leaving. His chief of staff has left. His security advisor has left. At this point, the Trump administration is just pretty much going to be him lonely going out the door to some Highway to Heaven music. That's the best way I could put that. But like I was pointing out before, House Majority Whip James Clyburn, he said it yesterday that he believes there's an inside job, and I can't blame him for it. He said, quote unquote, I do believe something was going on. They knew where to go. I've been told by some of the Congress people that the staff are saying that they saw people being allowed into the building through side doors, who opened those side doors to those protesters, or I called them these mobsters to come into the building, not through the main entrance where magnetometers are, but through side doors. Yes, somebody on the inside of those buildings was complicit in this. And I can't disagree. I can't disagree. He's got a fair point. He does have a fair point. That, yeah, I mean, I'm not one for conspiracy theorists. I'm not. I usually, dismiss them. But in this case, it's hard to argue with the obvious. That, yes, some of these people were getting into places that they should not have got into or not been able to get into, and yet they were able to into. So again, Representative Clyburn is right. There is an inside job. Then I hope they get more into it. But there is some. But like I said before, everybody that was raiding, and I said it before, DC is a cam city. What I mean by that is it is a city full of street cams everywhere. Not as bad, not as big as London, but still pretty significant. And everybody that rioted and walked through the Capitol, you got tagged. Now I kept on saying that eventually those very same folks will actually see a judge someday, or their jobs will be lost, or things of that nature. Well, I'm not surprised about the first one because they were bound to find this dude.
His feet up in House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office has officially been arrested. The man is Richard Barnett. He was arrested on charges of entering and remaining on restricted grounds, violent entry, and theft of public property. Barnett and the riotous group of pro-Trump rioters that breached the Capitol on Wednesday did not just spring up out of nowhere. It was arguably the culmination of 4 years of pro-Trump internet conspiracy theories that reached a fever pitch in the wake of the election as the president promoted baseless claims of election fraud and then told them to march on the Capitol to, quote, remember the hashtag, stop the steal.
So yeah, the infamous picture of the guy sitting at Nancy Pelosi's desk. Don't feel bad for him at all because again, you broke into a government facility. That's a charge. You destroyed government property. That's a charge. And you stole mail from the House Speaker's office. Federal crimes, all because you wanted to prove a point of what exactly? And I say this. And the funny part is, you guys should hear his entire explanation.
How'd you get it? I didn't steal it. I bled on it because they were fucking macing me and I couldn't fucking see. And so I figured, well, I'm in her office. I got blood in her office. I'll put a quarter on her desk, even though she ain't fucking worth it. And I left her a note on her desk. It says, Nancy Big O is here, you bitch. Office? Yeah, that's the freaking office.
Oh, yes. Bigo was here. Now Bigo's in jail. But again, it makes no sense. Like I said before, the level of emboldenment was only because of Trump. And honestly, that's where we are at this point right now. Except, well, there is one shining light out of all this. And I just have to play it because it makes me smile. Hopefully it plays.
If you can see this on screen right now, the president's Twitter account has been suspended. And all you can see if you go to @RealDonaldTrump at the moment, it says account suspended. everything has been sort of wiped off of the social media platform. Twitter has also released a statement just in the last several minutes about this, and I could just read this to you. It says, after close review of recent tweets from the @RealDonaldTrump account and the context around them, we have permanently suspended the account due to the risk of further incitement of violence. That is from the Twitter safety department at the Twitter social media platform. Wolf, this is obviously an extraordinary development because, as you know, one of the defining aspects of the Trump presidency has been his use of his Twitter account. He has fired people by Twitter. He has announced policy changes by Twitter. He has announced pardons by Twitter. And he has incited violence on Twitter, as we know. We saw this leading up to the events on January 6th. And Twitter is saying because of the president's potential to further incite violence, they are shutting down his account. Now, obviously, Twitter has come under a great deal of scrutiny, a lot of pressure from social media safety advocates in recent weeks, saying that the social media platform hasn't gone far enough. In recent days, we saw they took down some of the president's tweets, and prior to that, they had been labeling the president's tweets in the run-up to January 6th, pointing out when he would say false things about the election results and so on. But this is a dramatic development, Wolf, no question about it. Suspending permanently, the social media platform says, the president's Twitter account. Now, one has to wonder, Wolf, what this will do to the president's state of mind. We know he's been unstable. We're hearing from our sources that he has lost it and so on in recent days. What does this do to the president now that he no longer has access to this Twitter account, which he talks about all the time as a way of going around the media and so on? He doesn't have that anymore, at least not for the time being. And it makes you wonder, covering this president, knowing how unstable things have been in recent days, whether or not this pushes the president further to the edge as impeachment is being contemplated, the 25th Amendment is being contemplated, and so on. He can't vent on Twitter. One of the things we've noticed over the weekends covering this president, he won't be doing the work of the American people. He'll be tweeting his grievances and so on. He can't do that, it seems, this weekend during a critical time.
Yes, Twitter, just like Facebook, just like Instagram, you're 4 years too late. I mean, 4 years too late. I'm still trying to figure this out. When they say because he instigated violence. So, I'm just lost. It took this to get you to is it just because he's at the end of his presidency, or is it just because he basically started a coup? I'm trying to figure this out. Because let's be honest, if you look at the history of everything Dorito has said, you're telling me this was the straw that broke the camel's back? Well, like I said before, I mean, yeah, congratulations, Twitter and Facebook, because Mark Zuckerberg also had permanently banned Donald Trump. But again, it's one of those things where I sit there and I'm just like, I don't know how I can. Yeah, it took y'all 4 years. Well, better late than never, I guess. But again, made me smile that now Donald Trump does not have a platform. But I hear MySpace is pretty open to him, so look for MySpace messages, I guess. So, but that's pretty much been the week in itself from the world of politics. We do have some other stories from other areas before we get to our feel good news segment. This one was a little also disappointing because this came on the day before all the shit went down. Of course, in the case of Jacob Blake.
There's a very narrow decision that must be made. And so I will be announcing today the question of whether the district attorney's office in its professional judgment feels that there is sufficient admissible evidence to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that Officer Shesky or any of the other Kenosha officers shot Jacob Blake unlawfully or committed any other offense. That's the task. It's a narrow task today. It's a legal and professional task. And it is my decision now that I announce today before you that no Kenosha law enforcement officer in this case will be charged with any criminal offense based on the facts and the laws as I will describe them to you now. So it is our decision that no charge will be filed. I'm going to also tell you, just because I think it is important, that no charge will be filed against Jacob Blake in regards to this incident as well. For many of the same reasons, in terms of an overall discussion about this case, that is not something that the District Attorney's Office intends to pursue.
So, that was actually the DA for the Jacob Blake case saying that they will not press any types of charges against the officers who shot Jacob Blake. Now, for all those that don't remember, Jacob Blake was actually there to break up a dispute that did not involve him. He was actually playing peacemaker. Cops were called, and as he tried to leave, the officers were trying to get his attention, trying to get him to stop. One officer, as he went toward the car and opened the door, he was shot 7 times in the back. Now, there is a longer clip. It's actually an hour and a half clip of the DA explaining all the evidence. But what they did say was that yes, Jacob was armed. As far as him having a knife in the vehicle, he did not have it in his hand at the time. The officers that were there all collaborated that the officer that did see the knife in the car and thought that their lives were in danger and decided to shoot. I still, at this point, I'm concerned. The reason why I say I'm concerned is because it's getting more and more difficult to hold police accountable. Now, criminal actions, okay. You have to explain how shooting a guy 7 times when his back is turned to you is lawful. You have to explain that. If you can't explain that aside from the fact that he's a cop and the person the cop was shooting at was a threat, you have to be a little bit more precise in that explanation. Because 7 times in the back is excessive. It's overkill. And again, with all these police shootings that we usually see happen, where multiple shots seem to hit one person or 2 people at the most, again, this is a shoot to kill moment. And at the same time, I'm not trying to say I'm getting dismayed. I'm not trying to say that, but I'm actually losing hope in the fact that aside from one case where we saw a cop go to jail, well, actually 2 cases. 2 cases where we saw 2 cops go to jail. Amber Geiger is still the one that the one that peeves me off, because I don't know how she got 10 years. To this day, I still don't know how this officer got 10 years for going into an apartment that wasn't hers and shooting a person because she claimed that he was in her apartment. How did she get 10 years? In the same sense of, like I said with Jacob Blake, he is still allowed to tell his story, but he's paralyzed. The officers can go home, but Jacob Blake will his life is forever altered. So again, it's one of those things to where how in the world can you say to us that we're not living in 2 Americas? We aren't. We are living in 2 Americas. There's no ifs, ands, or buts to it. But at the same time, Jacob Blake deserves Jacob Blake deserves justice. Those cops that shot him 7 times in the back, they do have the answer for that. And fearing for my life is no longer an excuse. That's just code word for you to get out of stuff. And even more so, even the next case of Elijah McClain, this also gives me pause.
Just are looking further into the death of Elijah McClain to see if a federal civil rights investigation is warranted. As you might remember, police confronted the 23-year-old black man as he was walking home from a convenience store in Aurora, Colorado, last August. Officers detained McClain, who was not armed and was not accused of committing any crime. After a struggle ensued, McClain was put into a chokehold and given a sedative. McClain would suffer a major heart attack and die 3 days later. For more on this, let's bring in Dylan Thomas. He is a reporter with our CBS station in Denver, KCNC. Hi, Dylan. Thank you for being with us. So what exactly is the Department of Justice looking into, and how will they determine whether a federal civil rights investigation is needed here?
you know, they started to get involved right about the time where this started to become more of a national case. This has been going on for the better part of 10 months now, but it wasn't until the deaths of George Floyd and others that this really started to get the attention. So right now, when it comes down to the civil rights case, they actually have to go out and prove that his civil rights were violated in terms of Elijah had a right to be out walking to his home from that store where he bought some tea. So right now, they are out there trying to see whether or not his civil rights were violated because he has a right to freely walk and not be killed by police for simply walking home. We should note he had not committed a crime at the time when the 911 call was made reporting that he was acting odd. So right now investigators are looking into whether or not there was an issue around when the police responded and took the action that they did, if his civil rights were violated, because technically Elijah had not committed a crime when they had made contact with him. So right now they're looking into whether or not the officer showed intent to violate his civil rights.
And so then how does a federal civil rights investigation differ from other investigations if the outcome shows that his civil rights were violated?
Now let's start right there, just because they go into the fact of if his civil rights were violated, then yes, they would actually go to a different court and things of that nature. But the thing about that whole story is, like I said, with Elijah McClain, it was almost like a Trayvon Martin situation. He was walking from a convenience store, harassed by police, and eventually, you know, it led to his demise. Again, this is, like I said before, this all goes into the two Americas. It's just the way we get treated and the way they get treated is amazingly different. At the same time, again, this is another issue of a black man dying at the hands of cops. Will cops ever be held accountable? That's the truth. It's amazing that you'll hold different people accountable, but I've never understood as a black person why our case is so much harder to prove than it is anyone else. Why are we so hard to believe when we sit there and say the police want to kill us? Why is it so hard to believe that when something comes up stolen, we're the first suspects? Why is it so hard to believe that when we say there is no equality in anything, that people immediately dismiss us? It's two Americas. It's the Americas that white people live in, and for the rest of us, we have reality. So, with that being said, guys, the last story I do have, of course, like I said, keeping it in this one. I remember that woman not too long ago, like last week, I won't say last week or week before, that sat there and accused the black teen of stealing her phone in an NYC hotel. Well, she got an interview. The reason why she got an interview, she got arrested.
The woman caught on camera physically attacking a black teenager and falsely accusing him of stealing her cell phone has been arrested in California. It happened last night. You might remember this video. Mia Ponsetto approached 14-year-old Keon Harold Jr. at a New York City hotel last month, accusing him of stealing her phone. His father, jazz musician Keon Harold, recorded the encounter and accused Ponsetto of racial profiling.
We have what you see two black people.
No, I'm not letting him walk away with my phone.
Now, the video shows Ponsetto trying to stop the teenager from leaving the hotel lobby and then rushing toward them. Hotel surveillance video shows the 22-year-old woman tackling Keon Jr. Now, he never had the phone. It turned up several minutes later at the hotel. New York City detectives went to California yesterday to coordinate Ponsetto's arrest in connection with the confrontation. She was contacted at a traffic stop in Ventura County near Los Angeles. Officials say that police had to pull her out of the car when she refused to get out. Now, in an exclusive interview, we had just done that interview yesterday afternoon. Her lawyer spoke with us before she was arrested. They told us that NYPD had not yet contacted them. Mia, help me understand. What made you think that Keon had your phone? That's why I'm confused. Why did you think he had it?
I was approaching the people that had been exiting the hotel because in my mind, anybody exiting is probably the one that might be the one that is trying to steal my phone. I admit, yes, I could have approached the situation differently or maybe not yelled at him like that and made him feel, you know, maybe some sort of inferior way, making him feel as if I was like hurting his feelings, because that's not my intention. I consider myself to be super sweet. I really never ever meant for it to like hurt him or his father. either.
Are you saying that you were stopping everybody in the lobby, asking them about your phone? Is that what you're saying?
Not everyone, just the people that in the meantime, while the hotel manager was checking the footage, I just wanted to do my part as best as I could.
You just described yourself as super sweet. I know you've seen the video. When you look at the video, the reaction seems very extreme. It doesn't seem like it's someone who's super sweet.
How would you feel if you were alone in New York and you're going to spend time with your family during the holidays and you lose the one thing that gets stolen from you that has all of the access to the only way that you're able to get back home?
I just don't think I would randomly attack people, is what I'm saying to you. I know you said you could have handled it better, but I just don't think I would randomly attack people in the manner in which you did. What do you think when you look at that video? You're standing there in your leggings and your flip-flops, and it looks like you're just going nuts, for lack of a better word.
No, I'm not letting him walk away with my phone.
I don't feel that is who I am as a person. I don't feel like this one mistake does define me, but I do sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, apologize that if I made the son feel as if I assaulted him, or if I hurt his feelings or the father's feelings.
I don't believe one mistake defines anybody, but I think when I look at that particular video, you did more than just accuse him. The video seems to show that you physically attacked this young boy. You do see that too, right?
But at the end of the day, the dad did end up like slamming me to the ground and pulling my hair and throwing me and dragging me across the ground. So I will say that.
Yeah, but I think, the video we saw, it looked like you had just attacked his son.
Yeah, the footage shows me attacking his son. Of attacking him how? Yelling at him? Yes. Okay, I apologize. Can we move on?
I know you're saying I don't need to, I just want to apologize, but I do think that there should be some context to your actions that day.
Okay, so basically I'm a 22-year-old girl. Racism how is one girl accusing a guy about a phone a crime? Where is the context in that?
Mia,
what is the deeper
Mia,
story
it's
here?
not. That's not the problem. You have to at least understand your actions that day. You seem to have attacked this little boy, this young boy, this teenager. You seem to have attacked this teenager about the phone, and then it turned out he didn't even have your phone. That's the thing. I mean, you're saying, look, I'm 22 years old. You're 22 years old, but you are old enough to know better. So I will say you're 22. I get it.
Enough. The hotel did have my phone. The hotel did end up having my phone. I did get my belongings returned to me.
All right.
Oh, wow.
Great, Gail.
Enough.
That was my favorite part. Enough. Now, the Harrell family's lawyer released a statement last night. They said this is not about an apology from someone who until a few days ago was claiming she did nothing wrong and, in fact, alleged that Keon Harrell Sr. had assaulted her, someone who targeted a 14-year-old black teenager because of the color of his skin. We'll have more of our interview with Miss Mia Ponsetto on Monday. I actually felt for the attorney there who was really trying to help her. And then, when she interjected, Mia would get upset about that. She insisted that she's not racial profiling. She has an explanation about that. No. And, it was reported that an Uber driver returned the phone. She says that's not true. So she wanted to make an apology, but as I said to her in the interview, I'm not sure you're helping yourself here.
Well, the point is, he didn't have her phone.
No, he did not.
And
he did not.
Interesting choice of hat, by the way.
Yeah. Also, the point is the video footage is pretty clear, and she doesn't seem quite ready to acknowledge what it shows.
Her lawyer, Sharon, sitting by her side, tried to help her. It's interesting you would point out the hat because Sharon said, you might want to remove that hat.
Yeah.
And she refused to do that, too. So it was an interesting afternoon. And at the time, I said, have NYPD been in touch with you? They had not. So it was interesting that right after that interview, that she was stopped and then arrested.
Well, she said she didn't understand why it's a crime. Well, she might learn now.
Yeah. Okay. It's a very sad story, though. Really,
it is a very.
Ooh, child. How do I begin? I think every black person with a collective just went, ooh, child. Ooh, child. Ooh, child. Ooh, yes. So I told you they'd find her. Like I said, look, we are in a social media driven society. If you do something on camera, it will not be very long until they find you. So again, Mrs. Ponsetto, who is probably the next face for influenza, because you can tell she comes from money. It is amazing to me that these people, once they do something, it is almost like, okay, but there was no crime. Yes, there was a crime. You assaulted a teenager. You berated them, saying that he stole your phone, even though you have no evidence to prove otherwise. You tackled him. You got this, and then the hotel management decided to side with you. And then you acted exactly like every entitled brat that's out there. Oh, he's at my phone. He's got my phone. Why do you call the number? If you call the number and the phone rings in his hand, guilty. But you didn't do that. But again, she even asked her, how did you know he had the phone? Well, it's just that I was, I just thought logically that whoever came in there, whoever in there last, more than likely has the phone. And so you decided to randomly pick people, or do you just immediately assume because he's black? And of course, she didn't want to sit there and say that. And I'm going to be honest, her lawyer might as well go ahead and quit. I don't know who her lawyer is, because I thought that was her mother standing right beside her. No, that's the lawyer. If I was a lawyer right now, I'd have been like, I'm out, man. Good luck, because the family is going to sue her, and they're going to sue the hotel. I said it on my last podcast. The family of that hotel, because the manager sided with this woman. Honestly, the lawyer for that family of that young black man, he should be asking them how much you want the hotel to pay, because they're going to pay to make this go away, because they don't want the bad publicity. They don't want the bad publicity. At the same time, I guarantee that hotel manager no longer works there. I can guarantee at this point. And I've been telling people, I said, this is what happens about when people say, well, about free speech and all this stuff. No. You will always have free speech. Your rights are never taken away from you. It's the consequences that you want to be absolved from. You just can't go running. You can't go running into a building full of people and say, I've got a bomb, and then walk out and expect nothing to happen to you. There's consequences to every action. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And so in this case with Miss Ponsetto, you could tell she's not remorseful. No shape or form. She's only sitting there trying to have this conversation because she got caught. At the same time, her hat choice, you possibly could be brought up on assault charges in New York. Now, granted, she might not have a criminal record, but at the same time, she does have means. I mean, like I said, she reminds me of those people that just come up for money, have never been held accountable for their actions, and when you point them out to them, she went the victim role. I'm a 22-year-old woman. Yes, a 22-year-old woman that tackled a 14-year-old teenager. You're 21. You're an adult. You're not a child. You get treated like an adult. And again, the level of disrespect that she had. Now, I'm not a fan of Gayle King either. I mean, let's just be honest. She's an all right interviewer. I'm not really a big fan of hers, but damn, give her respect at least. That's enough, Gayle. Anybody that has the balls to sit there and tell it to an older person, that's enough, Gayle. That's enough. Ooh, I was like, oh, you've never been around. You need to get backhanded at least one good time. But again, we'll follow that story and see where it goes. But the last story we have before our Feel Good News segment does come from my home state of Tennessee, where FBI agents have raided the homes and offices of Tennessee state lawmakers. And the thing about this is, this Tennessee state lawmaker that's actually here, Representative Glenn Casada, was accused of texting and sending inappropriate text messages to how can we say this? He was accused back in 2019 of sending inappropriate and sexually laced text messages and videos, in which he actually did lead. Now, also at the same time, they searched addresses associated with this man. Former GOP State Representative Robin Smith, Todd Warner, his Chief of Staff, Dave Coulthrin, David Boiling, who's a spokesman for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Nashville. And other several offices were raided on Friday. But Boiling, who actually is a spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney's Office, has not said those names. So, here's what I know from the simple fact of the matter of this is, guys. When houses get raided by FBI, somebody is singing. And probably it'll be Glenn Quesada, because more than likely they probably found more stuff on him than anything else. But as I said it best about Tennessee legislature and things of that nature, I am simply just not surprised. So, whoo, what a week, huh? What a week. So, we've actually gotten to our feel-good segment, guys, because after this week, we really do need one. And on the feel-good news segment, how the frack we got here, we do cover a lot of things as doom and gloom. Sometimes it's just downright devastating, soul-wrenching, and morally devoiding. But it's the weekend. It's actually the second week of the first year of 2021, and 2021 has already sat there and gotten to the Look at Me Ma stage. So we need some uplifting stuff. We need some good stuff. Something that makes us whole. Something that makes us smile and gives us hope that the rest of 2020 will not be like the last year of 2020. Well, I'm sorry, that 2021 will not be like the rest of how 2020 went. So, with that being said, I do want to tell this story, like I said before, about medical debt. About medical debt, and trust me, it is a mother. And at the same time, a lot of people are still dealing with medical debt. So, with that being said, I want to show this story.
The patients. It's rather sacred and very unique. The response has been gratifying. We're just grateful for the opportunity. I'm certain that many others in our shoes would have done the same. Physicians all around the country, all around the world.
And I thought that was pretty cool, just because the simple fact of the matter is, a doctor that is actually forgave student debt. I'm going to get to student debt momentarily, but he actually forgave the medical debt for a lot of his patients, and I thought that was pretty cool. And of course, speaking of things from really the weirdest of places, this story really does stand out. If it plays.
And paying it forward. The U.S. has less than 5% of the world's population, but about 20% of its prison population. That is not good. One California program is tackling mass incarceration by focusing on empathy and restorative justice. Omar Villafranca shows us how an unlikely partnership forged behind bars helped a high school student in need, and it all began in a prison book club.
It was incredibly refreshing to have young men come into a space with us and see us as what we are, which is people.
For the past 7 years, students from the Palma School in Salinas, California,
have been part of a book club at an unlikely place, Soledad Prison. And former inmate Jason Bryant says the discussions went beyond plot lines and protagonists.
When I encountered the young men, I was just encouraged to see the good choices that they were making at such a young age when I was not.
When he was 20 years old, Bryant was sentenced to 26 years to life for his involvement in a 1999 robbery that resulted in a shooting death. Behind bars, Bryant was looking for ways to be of service. Then, at book club, he heard about Ernest Gordon's Miracle on the River Kwai. In the book, prisoners of war created a culture of sacrifice, and they called it mucking for each other. Inspired by the POWs, Bryant and his co-defendant hatched a plan.
And he leaned over and he said, that is exactly what we need to do. We need to muck for a young man.
The Brothers in Bloom, as they were called, decided to raise money from other prisoners to create a scholarship fund for a Palma student in need. Almost 800 inmates, many working jobs like sweeping, clerking, or making furniture, raised $32,000 over the course of 3 years.
So the base pay for incarcerated people in the state of California is 8 cents an hour.
An hour?
An hour. And incarcerated people were so drawn to the idea of going a mile deep in a young man's life that they were giving up their month's pay to contribute.
They were anywhere from 50 cents to $100 here and there.
Mia Marisu and Jim Micheletti founded the literature program called Exercises in Empathy.
When students go in, justifiably, they're a little bit afraid. They go in thinking monster, and they come out thinking a man, a human being. And they've done bad things, but there's no throwaway people here.
When they learned about the inmates' plan, they knew exactly who should receive the scholarship. Before his sophomore year, Cy Green's father had a heart transplant. His mother had an accident and lost her vision, and both parents lost their jobs.
That was a financial burden with all the medical bills and stuff.
Green was shocked to learn inmates, who he'd never met, had come together to pay for his tuition so he could continue going to private school.
I was mind blown, and then immediately I was just grateful.
Green is now 19 and in college. He graduated from Palma School last year with Bryant by his side.
Is there any level of personal redemption in getting involved in something like this?
I mean, you're talking to someone who committed a crime that cannot be undone, the harm. So I don't know about redemption. I can say this. I know that those of us who have truly transformed our lives are committed to add value in any way that we possibly can.
After 20 years behind bars, last March, California Governor Gavin Newsom granted Bryant clemency.
Backdrop?
Yeah, I think so.
He's using his second chance to mentor students like Cy Green, who know he also has a responsibility to continue paying it forward.
And having that, I guess, them in the back of my mind all the time. They put all this effort and all this work into me, so I have to honor that and carry that legacy on.
For CBS This Morning, Omar Villafranca, Dallas.
And that itself is actually pretty cool, just because, like I said, the most weirdest of places is to where you find inspiration, and literally you find people willing to contribute to society, really. Even more so, like I said before, sometimes it's as easy as watching a child find compassion in others.
Although he's only 10 years old, Ethan Hill knows that the best way to show your gratitude is to pay it forward. This lesson became real the day he met a homeless man on his way to school.
His name is Mr. Marcus, and he's a very nice man. He lives under the bridge. It's starting to get cold. So I was asking and Googling and seeing everything that I can do to help them and see what clothing they needed and what they needed to survive.
Forming that relationship with Mr. Marcus changed his life forever.
I mean, it feels like it's not all about you. It's not you story. Like they say, walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. You gotta do that, and see what they're going through, look at their perspective.
He founded Ethan's Heart to collect essentials for people living on the street.
Toilet paper, like toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, water, rags. Oh, everything that you and me would need.
Which has become all the more important during the COVID-19 pandemic.
And they still need to be protected from the virus. They need masks and gloves and hand sanitizers.
Ethan's message to everyone is simple.
It doesn't take making your own organization. You can just go out and help at some warming station. You can help pass out food. And it doesn't require spending money sometimes. So you can just go out and help.
And that's at 10 years old. 10 years old, man. See, this is why I sit there and say I have hope for the future. Yeah, I mean, I've shown multiple feel-good stories about children starting their own businesses, helping out the homeless, getting toys and food and kids and toys and food and supplies, and it never ceased to amaze me the level of understanding these children have about compassion for others. It never ceases to amaze me on that. And I just thought that was pretty cool because, you know, if he grows up with that type of mentality, we're good. I used to sit there and say I was worried about the next generation. Now, I think we're good. I can honestly say I think we're good. So, with that being said, guys, that is actually the end of the podcast. Like I said, I do thank you for sticking with me because I know it was a lot, but we had to definitely cover this week just because of everything that's going on. So, with that being said, guys, I do got to do some shameless plugging before I do get out of here. I'll start with my buddy Big VZA Dot. Big VZA Dot on Facebook. If you know him, cool. If not, you should know him. He's friendly, somewhat. But if you go to his page and go to his videos, you'll be able to see the podcast that he's done so far. I'll start with the first one called the VST. Now, the VST is a news podcast. That news can be music, video game, or trailers, as he loves to show. And he definitely is the king of weird trailers because he always finds the weirdest things to talk about. And as you can see from me commenting on this side, it definitely is an interactive show. So you can definitely give him a like, share from there. He also has another show called, for the purposes of this podcast, we're going to call it RAF. Now, if you want to know what RAF stands for, then I'll tell you later on off on this podcast. But what is RAF? It is pretty much the pool of ratchets we sometimes dip our toes into to take a break from life and have a chuckle. Some bills make you think, some bills make you cry. And of course, he goes over videos to a certain theme. In this case, it was pretty much Frack Donald Trump, in which that he did show videos from the about-to-be, would-be fake dictator person. Much like, you know, Trump supporters sitting outside the election office praying for him to stop to count the votes. Oh, how harmless they looked at the time, but we all knew it was going to happen. But like I said before, it's definitely entertaining and also interactive as well, so definitely give it a like, share from there. He also has another podcast called the Rhythmness Music Podcast. Now, what is Rhythmness? Rhythmness is basically rhythmness over the rhythm in which Vaughn, myself, and others, we like to get together and come up with certain music titles. New music comes out, or just music from the past we just want to re-listen to again. Now, keep in mind, we're all different on the musical scale, but hey, differences in musical taste lead to great conversations, and that's what Rhythmness is all about. And it's not just us, you can actually join in on the conversation too as well. And he also has his last one, which is a pop-up podcast, and it's a pop-up, I like to call it a pop-up art demonstration because, you know, music is an art, and I always love going to this one specifically because my buddy Bond makes beats like this. And I always go to this because, again, he is a beat maker, he likes the beats, he tickles the ivory keys, so to speak, and he makes beats so good that you just gotta have popcorn to it. As you can see right now, that's how you know the beat's good, you gotta have popcorn to it. But anyway, he likes to show his process from the beginning to end of the beats that he came up with. So if you are a beat maker or a percussion person or just likes to see really art in its most creative form, then definitely the Funkin' Around podcast is definitely for you. Now, all of his shows can be seen from his Facebook page at BigVZA Dot. He is returning back very soon with all of his podcasts in full form. So definitely be on the lookout on his Facebook page at BigVZA Dot or his YouTube page to be able to see every podcast that he's done so far. Now, as far as yours truly, yes, I did mess up because now that I think about it, I don't have my link at the bottom. I don't have my link at the bottom. So because I usually have I'm trying to get into this process with my links and everything that's going on, that I want to make sure that you guys can see every podcast, just because I don't trust Zuckerberg, because I'm currently thinking that eventually he's going to shut this all down. So, with that being said, I will talk about my podcast, so that way you guys know exactly what to look for. So every Tuesday, although we didn't do one this Tuesday because, everything that's going on. So, of course, starting next Tuesday, what we actually will be doing, guys, is every Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. is the Burned Out Podcast, in which I tell stories from my IT background. And those stories are meant to be funny. I do mean they are meant to be funny. Just because if you worked in customer service, if you worked in retail, if you've worked pretty much with the public, then you understand that with the public, they're funny. And of course, that's the whole point of my podcast, is basically telling my funny stories. If you find it funny, then great. If not, then I'm talking about you. You need to lighten up. Aside from that, of course, Saturdays you see from 10 a.m. to noon, as you're currently watching now, is the How the Frack We Got Here podcast. A little bit later tonight, between 8 to 10 p.m., will be the Off Limits podcast. That is a podcast that definitely does go there. I will probably be doing a solo run again, but it's fine. But I will actually be talking about a certain, like I said, on the Off Limits podcast, even though we're on How the Frack We Got Here, and I'm already getting tongue-tied. On the Off Limits podcast, what we actually do is, like I said, as the name implies, there is nothing we don't talk about. There's nothing off limits. We talk about anything and everything, and tonight will not be no exception. So if you are for that, then definitely come join us later. But it is definitely adult-oriented, so, I would say if your kids are not used to harsh language, you might want to leave them out for this one. And of course, Sunday, between 7 and 9 p.m. is my podcast, Get Bit. It is my Blur podcast, in which we cover video games, anime, superhero television, pop culture, really. And trust me, there's a lot, considering that the craze for WandaVision, one of the first Disney Plus series, will be coming out January the 15th. So we're not too far off from that. Of course, there is a Disney Legends right now that's been released, that supposedly the episodes are covering Scarlet Witch and Vision, to give you a teaser trailer for what happens next on WandaVision as it gets released. But we'll talk about that and many more other things this Sunday or 7 to 9 p.m., like I said, on Get Bit, because it is a podcast for the blurs and the nerds, and if you like something, then you are a nerd. That's your fandom. So therefore, everybody is welcome. Now, all my shows can be found under YouTube or Facebook. Simply put, like How the Frack We Got Here can definitely be found on YouTube. If, like I said before, I do apologize. I will actually, I promise you the next time, because I do have a YouTube page for How the Frack We Got Here. Usually I have the link down there, but unfortunately it does not. In the edited version of this, it will have a link at the bottom just to make sure that it's there. But aside from, like I said, either on Facebook or on YouTube, you can search them up by their name. So if you type in on Facebook or YouTube, The Burned Out Podcast, How the Frack We Got Here, The Off Limits Podcast, and Get Bit, that is GITBIT, you'll be able to see every podcast I've done this far. Aside from that, guys, last thing I'll sit there and say is, please understand COVID-19 is real. We did cover a lot of the riots and Donald Trump's failed coup with his domestic terrorists. But COVID-19 is not to the wayside. It is still very real. It's still affecting a lot of people. People are still dying. Please wear a mask. Please avoid large crowds. Please do not go into crowded areas unless you absolutely have to. At the same time, wear a mask. If you're sick, please go to the hospital. If you're very sick, please go to the hospital. But at the same time, let's not try to overrun our emergency rooms and ICUs that are already nearing capacity, and even have to turn away some people that just simply are not going to be able to be saved. And yes, that is actually happening in California. So, like I said, it's time to think about others and be safe. Also, thank a nurse, thank a doctor, thank a nurse's aide, doctor's aide, environmental people that work in the hospitals. Just simply saying thank you for your service, and really saying that what you guys are doing is dedication enough. I mean, if I was president, I'd be wiping out student loans right now. But again, we can do as much as we can just from the citizen side, acknowledging the medical professional personnel that are actually, really trying to keep everybody safe, as well as trying to keep their sanity. Aside from that, we want to also be kinder and thank essential workers. I'm talking about those that work in the fast food restaurants, those that work in industrial areas, those that work in retail, those that work in customer service, those that work in gas stations, grocery stores, truck stop drivers, those that actually work work in areas to where they're not able to work from home. For a lot of us, we are able to work from home, but for everyone else that's to go in, like UPS, United States Postal Service, FedEx, DHL, Amazon warehouse workers, and everybody else that has to work to keep the lights on for the rest of us, we do thank them as well, because they definitely need this help. So, Mr. Biden, I'm going to say it, January 21st, I better see a $2,000 monthly stimulus check being pushed. That's all I'm saying. Because although not to go right back into the political thing of it again, is like I said before, come January 21st, it is going to be the Democrats. The Democrats for the next 2 years have full control of Congress. Mitch McConnell has been the wall that has just now been broken down. I expect to see a lot of bills get pushed through. I expect to see a lot of approvals get fast-tracked. I expect to see Joe Biden and Madam Vice President Kamala Harris really put forward what they're going to do in order to get us past all this. I am looking forward to it. We're just going to see and go from there. But aside from that, guys, like I said, be safe, be kind to each other. We'll all get through this. And like I said, thank you for all watching. If you like what I did, please let me know. If you didn't like what I did, please let me know. And at the same time, hope to see you guys a little bit later on for this podcast. Take care of yourselves and be kind to each other.